Hey guys, welcome to Learning at Go British, changing the experience of learning online. Today we're going to talk about the present simple, the most basic structure in English. Now, when do I use the present simple? First, for universal facts, which happen everywhere in the earth. For example, water freezes in cold conditions. For general actions, for example, Antonio works at night. Also with permanent actions which are usually repetitive, like Silvia lives in Almeria. Also for habits and routines, for example, Chris plays football on Saturdays. Now with timetables like hours or dates, for instance, the academy opens at 9 o'clock. And finally with static verbs, which are related to thinking, emotions, feelings, like I love English. As you can see, I'm using adverb of time in some of them, but not always. But we're going to see that later, okay? Now, let's move to the structure, which is the way I can build one sentence in present simple. Okay, so I need to divide that in three different sections: affirmative, negative, and question. For the affirmative, I'm going to put the subject, then the verb, and finally the complement. For example, I eat pasta, or Christian plays football. But wait one second, what is that S in play? Well, we need to talk about the third person singular. When you use the third person singular, which is he, she, or it, in present simple, you need to add an S to the ending of the verb. For example, instead of I want biscuits, if I use the third person singular, I will say she wants with the S, okay? But we have got two exceptions, okay? The first one's when the verb finishes in consonant and Y, it becomes eyes. Let's look at the verb fly, which finishes in I. The plane, which is it, flies over the Atlantic Ocean. But remember, it only happens with consonants. For example, play has got A and Y. So I cannot say my sister plays video games every day. That would be incorrect, okay? The correct way to say that is my sister plays, normal S, video games every day. And now the second exceptions state that when the verb finishes in one of those letters or double letters, it becomes a simple is, okay? For example, instead of I press, I would say she presses, or fixes, pushes, or catches, okay? Yeah. Now, let's move to the negative. I begin with the subject, then the negative auxiliary verb, and the verb. But wait one second, what is auxiliary verb? Okay, this is very important. In English, we use the auxiliary verb in negative and questions, always. And depending on the tense and the person, it's one or another one, okay? For example, for the present simple, I and you, the auxiliary verb is do or do not. For he, she, or it is does or does not. And for the rest, it's again do or do not. For example, I do not eat pasta, or Elo, who is she, doesn't play football. And look here, in the negative sentence, I don't include the S anymore because I am using the negative auxiliary verb. Good. Now, let's move to the questions. I begin always with the auxiliary verb, then the subject and the main verb. For example, do you eat pasta? Does Chris play football? And if I want to include a question, I do it in the beginning. When do you eat pasta? Why does Chris play football? Very easy, isn't it? Okay, now let's see the adverb of time, which I was talking about in the beginning of the video. We have got three different sections. The adverbs related with frequency, which is how often I do an actions. More times, I say always. Then usually, frequently, sometimes, rarely, seldom. And when I don't do the actions, I say never. And what is the natural position of the auxiliary verbs? of the adverbs of time. Well, for the frequency, it is either between the subject and the verb or in the end. For example, Christian usually plays basketball or Christian plays basketball usually. Both are correct. And now, I always or never eat pasta. Okay, for these two, always and never, they are usually found between the subject and the verb. However, if I use the verb to be, I have to put the verb to be between the subject and the adverb of time. For example, I never am at the academy would be incorrect. Okay, and the correct way to say that is I am never at the academy. As you can see, first the subject and then the verb to be followed by never. Good. Let's continue. Another type of adverb of time are those related to repetition. For example, once, twice, or 3 times a day, every morning, day, night, whatever, which if you pay attention, it's very similar to frequency, but using more words. For example, every morning is the same as saying always, but specifying morning, okay? And its natural position is usually in the end of the sentence. For example, I eat pasta once a week, or Christian doesn't play football every day, okay? Now, we can also use a specific date, for example, at 9 o'clock, in the mornings, or in the evenings, or at night, also on Mondays, on Fridays, whatever, in 2018, okay? Depending on the moment, I use one preposition of time or another. For example, at is related with time or the moment of the day, of the night. In the is for the other moments of the day, and finally for years and season, and on for days of the week and month, okay? And the natural position again is in the end of the sentence. For example, I eat pasta on Mondays, or Christian plays football at 9 o'clock, okay? So that's pretty much the end of the video. I hope you like that, and remember, keep studying. Visit our website at gobritish.es. Follow us on Instagram at gobritishschool, and remember to have fun and lots of love. See you next time. Bye bye, guys.